Indiana postgame, SEC bias, and the Italian sausage makes a triumphant return. All that and next on Dot in the Eye with Davis and Chad. What's up, Buckeye Nation, and welcome to Dot in the Eye with Davis and Chad. And we are coming to you after a nice victory, 54-7 Buckeyes. What do you think, Davis?
Well, I think it's actually kind of what we predicted to happen.
Wait a minute, well, it's what I predicted to happen.
Okay, so you were closer to the bet.
Say it again.
Not the bet, but I'm sorry, our score predictions. Yes.
Say it
Okay.
again.
Well, listen, the last 2 weeks you've actually done really good with your score predictions. So I'll give you that. Mine has just been maybe a little more hesitant that as we continue to maybe up the opponents that we're playing, seeing what this defense is really about. And I still have a high confidence in the offense. Obviously didn't expect it to be a rain game. And I think even considering that 54-7 is even more impressive. But realistically, I mean, it went really well according to what we thought it would, but I think it still kind of exceeded expectations.
Yeah, I think anytime that you go on the road in the Big Ten at night on national television and blow somebody out that way, I mean, you have to consider that, exceeding expectations. You can't expect that in the Big Ten. I mean, as much as you want to say, okay, maybe the Big Ten's having an up year or a down year, it's still Big Ten football. And, you're not going to go out on the road at night and blow everybody out in this league. So you have to consider anything this big, this margin of victory this big. You have to consider that and, exceeding expectations, no doubt.
Yeah, and given the game conditions, okay, and I know I keep talking about this rain game, but I think that's something that gets completely understated because no one really realizes what it's really like to play in a game like that and to have such ball control. I mean, Ohio State didn't have a single turnover or even put the ball on the ground. Now, even Indiana fumbled it 3 times. They recovered all 3 times, but relatively speaking, I mean, for what that was, I mean, that was a really clean game in that kind of weather. And we saw very minimal drops by the receivers. I mean, only one notable one I can even remember was a Garrett Wilson, but he turned right back around on the next play and got the 3rd down conversion. So I'm really pleased with how well we played. And I'm actually surprised that, even as the rain kind of kept coming down there, Ryan Day didn't seem to deviate away from his plan going into this game.
Well, no, I don't think you can, especially like we talked about on the road in the Big Ten. I think he had a game plan instilled based on what he saw on film, and I'm sure, that was stuck in their head, and they went out there to execute that game plan. Screw the weather. I don't care if it's snowing, raining, whatever. But one of the things I wanted to say was that, if I had one critique about this game, it would be that, I think we need to clean up some of the penalties. A little bit disappointed in the amount of penalties we had, and, Indiana only had 1 penalty for the entire game.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we still had, I think, 5 penalties for 40 yards, which, I mean, it's averaging less than 10, so they're not critical ones. And I'd rather have those penalties more on the defense than the offense because I hate when the offense gets the penalties and they're kind of getting, back behind the sticks and making it a little bit hard to convert and killing out stats. I mean, even up through the first handful of drives in this, we were in some crazy run where we had 19 out of 19 drives with C.J. Stroud as the quarterback ended up in touchdowns. I mean, I'm sorry, like people say, oh, well, the competition wasn't that good. I don't care how easy the competition is. Do you realize how difficult it is to go on a streak like that? That's got to be some sort of record, wouldn't you think?
It is, but I will say this. I've been listening to a lot of talk radio since then, and people are bringing up interesting points. And one of the things they brought up is that we haven't even played a defense in the Big Ten that's in the top half of the Big Ten yet.
Well, yeah, we did. Indiana is.
No, they're not. They're in the bottom half. Now, they have a good pass defense.
Well, you saw what they. Okay,
you're forgetting about the run defense. There's an average of those two.
We got what we wanted passing and running relatively with ease. We made them look worse than Rutgers.
Well, that's attributed, though, to the kind of team Ohio State has, though. That's not attributed. I'm not saying just because you're ranked in the top half of the defense or the bottom half of the defense, that Ohio State's not going to do what they want to you at will. What I'm saying is that we have not faced anyone even near the top of statistics in the Big Ten for defense. We have.
Right, and I mean that's still, I mean that's your Penn State, that's your team up north, and that's Michigan State, obviously, and I think Purdue's actually up there too, if I'm not mistaken. So we're definitely gonna over the 4 to the next 5 games, we're gonna be facing really good defenses. Now, I think we might see a little bit drop in offensive production, but I still feel like we're gonna get 40 on all those teams. Like I don't see how we get kept off the scoreboard like that. That Oregon game, I mean, that's our lowest scoring game of the season at 28 points, and we still had 612 yards of offense. We just couldn't cash them in when we needed to. So I feel really confident that we're not going to drop below 40 the rest of the year.
I don't know, man. That's hard for me to say. It really is. I feel like as much as I believe in this team and I believe in this offense, there's always the turf monster waiting to snack you somewhere. Like I just feel like that. We can come out flat like we have many times in big games and just stub our toe. I mean, we could. I could see us ending a game with 35 points. I could all day long.
I feel like that game already happened. I feel like that was our Oregon game this year.
Well, I may not be the only one though.
Honestly, we normally don't throw more than one stinker out there every year. I mean, that's been pretty consistent over the last handful of seasons, and it just so happened that it was an earlier game.
But see where we're at? I don't consider 35 points a stinker. We win 35-17. I consider that a solid win.
Well, I consider it more of a stinker compared to what type of offense we have right now. And especially with CJ Stroud looking not only like, a world beater already, but he's looking insanely good lately. Insanely good. Now, again, I understand the competition hasn't been as good and he's going to run into his issues, but I mean, he's dropping dimes in there right now that, you're looking at this guy and like, where did this guy come from? Like, apparently we're now seeing what the coaches and what the players all saw in spring ball and in practice and everything leading up to it. So I really feel like anything short of 40 points a game, unless we're playing that elite team, is going to be a little bit of a downer, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah, I can see that, but I will say this. I think we're going to get a true test this week, Penn State at home. As much as I know Penn State's down, they got 2 consecutive losses, in a row here. And the last one really hurt, especially with the 9 overtime, thing. And who wants to lose to Illinois? But anyway, what I'm saying is their pass defense is pretty good. Now, I could see Travion Henderson running all over them, but their pass defense is pretty good. So I think it's going to be a nice test to see exactly what he can do. Can he oppose his will against a really good pass defense?
I agree with that. And we're going to get into that. But while you mention the subject, can we get on this new overtime rule and get your take on it? Now, I have 2 ways that I'm kind of leaning on this new overtime rule. Like, obviously, that LSU Texas A&M matchup when it was like 75-72 with like 7 overtimes several years ago was one of the reasons why I think they made this change, because they don't want this game going on for that long. We don't want these players getting hurt and beat up in this game that lasted 5 hours long. But I like the new setup, but it also feels more lucky than skill is involved in overtime, kind of like penalty kicks in soccer. Kind of like, you go that entire game and you're playing normal football that entire game. And then all of a sudden you get to overtime. And if you get to that third overtime, then it's penalty kicks. I mean, it's luck of the draw. I mean, you got one play only, and go. I like it on one aspect because it's exciting and it's more quick pace. But at the same time, I hate that it's more of a coin flip.
Dude, I couldn't have said it any better. I feel exactly like you said. I would love to disagree with you on this point, but I can't. There's really nothing I have to say.
Well, that's boring.
It's super boring because
I wasn't trying to get a rile to you. That's really how I feel about it, because as I watched it, I was riveted. I was sitting at the TV and I was highly entertained. But at the same time, I was like, God, can anyone convert a 2-yard play? Like, are you kidding me?
Oh, one of the things I wanted to ask you though was that I kind of noticed something during this game, and I wonder how you felt about it. All right.
Okay.
Now we know, leading this game as far as receivers go was Jackson Smith and Jigba. Okay, he had 6 receptions, 99 yards, but he didn't have a touchdown. But he had the most catches of the game. And behind him was Ruckert, who ended up having 2 touchdowns on the game.
Glad to see him get in it, though.
Yeah, absolutely. But my question to you is this. Do you think that as this season has gone on, because all we've done is talk about Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, do you think as the season has gone on, do you think that Jackson Smith and Jigba is slowly emerging as the favorite reliable target for CJ Stroud?
Yes and no. I would agree, yes, in the fact that obviously the stats don't lie. He's getting targeted quite a bit. But I think it's also a combination of the fact that both Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave are going to get double teamed, or they're going to get a lot of focus from the primary DBs, and they're going to game plan to try to shut them down. The problem is you can't shut down three. You can kind of shut down two. You can definitely shut down one, right? And if you got three different options there, then what typically is going to happen? Someone's going to get left, and the one that's going under the radar is Jackson Smith and Jigba. And I think something else that works in his favor is that he primarily plays the slot, and I think in this offense, that's generally a position on the field that is going to get a lot of targets. I mean, if you think about KJ Hill several years back with Dwayne Haskins, right? And I think he even played the last year. Was it with Justin Fields? I might be mistaken. I get a little mixed up there. But KJ Hill is way up there in regards to stats on Ohio State's overall leaderboard with wide receivers. And he played a lot of that slot position. So I really believe that in this system, that's why he's getting targeted a lot as well. But that's why more of your home run hitters and more of your third down reliable guys is going to be your Olave and your Wilson. And this wasn't a game where they really needed to, weigh heavily on Olave and Wilson. So it might even have been more of a focus to get Jackson Smith and Jigba the ball a little bit more this game, especially as it went on, just to try to continue to get him to develop and give something defenses have to look at to maybe help open up something else in the future.
While I agree with the fact that, it would have something to do with the defensive scheme we're running, whether or not, they're running like a cover 3 and we're worried about getting in the seams, or, what they're giving us. If they're running a cover 2 and we can put more stuff inside, it just depends on exactly what they're giving us. I do agree. But for some reason, dude, I have this feeling like, I feel like they've kind of come through it together. Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave are, in a sense, quote unquote, the old guard. Okay. They've been there. They've played with other quarterbacks. They've had success. Jackson Smith and Jigba and him, I feel like they're kind of shining. They're coming up on their shine at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that combination, especially next year, is going to be invaluable to this team. And I just feel like that chemistry is slowly building, and I feel like I see it every week. I started to look back at the stats, and I'm like, man, every week it's like Olave might have 7 catches this week, but next week he's got 2. And same thing with Wilson. But then you look every week, and Jigba's always got, between 3 to 8 catches. He's always right there at the top. And I always wonder, is that chemistry with defensive scheme, or, it just feels that way to me.
I don't think it's like chemistry, like, oh, Jackson Smith and Jigba, me and him mesh the best, so I'm going to deliver the ball the best to him. I mean, he's got his reads. He understands where the ball's supposed to go.
That's what it should be, though.
I think he's vibing with them all. I mean, if you
Gronkowski.
listen to the most recent quote that Olave gave out, is just that CJ Stroud's got a special arm talent, that he's going to put the ball where you need it, and it's up to us from there to make the play. He literally just quoted that earlier this week. So it's nothing that I think he's not vibing with Olave or Wilson or anything crazy like that.
So you don't think that there's a bigger chemistry between Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski than anybody else on that team?
Well, that one's obvious. I mean, they've been together forever. Like, that's
saying
not a fair
is
comparison.
I think it's starting to come that way. I think I feel it, dude.
I don't think there's a problem, even if that is the case. I mean,
no,
we're
it's not a
so
problem.
stupid
I'm just
stacked
wondering
at
if
wide
you feel
receiver right now. It's ridiculous. I mean, even, quote unquote, some garbage time, we're really starting to see Ibuka as a wide receiver get into the game and make plays. And then we finally see Marvin Harrison Jr. Good Lord. Did you see the spin move he put on that person? I mean, that was straight out of Braxton Miller's handbook right there. That was straight out of Braxton Miller's handbook.
First of all, Braxton Miller's a turd, but there's.
Don't you dare.
Yeah.
Listen, there's lines you don't cross. You know it. Don't cross that.
But I know I really do agree with you on most of your stuff. But I like to play the part of.
Wrong.
I do think that there's a chemistry there. Like I thought there was between Olave and Justin Fields. They had a special connection
I agree
last
with
year.
that. Okay, I agree. I see where you're coming from. I agree with you. It seems like he clicks the most with Jackson Smith and Jigba, that they're definitely on the same page. And you see a few times where maybe Wilson's dropped the ball he should have caught. Even a few times this year, Olave's dropped a few balls that normally he would catch. But it seems like almost every single time that thing goes to Jackson Smith and Jigba, he's not dropping the ball. Now, I think it's not a big deal, and I don't think it's an obvious thing, but I definitely see where you're coming from, that I guess that can kind of be the trend. But that's going to work in our favor.
Yeah,
Because if he
absolutely.
continues to get the ball, they're going to have to really start paying attention to him, and that's going to help shore up and make it easier to get the ball to Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. I mean, having that three-headed monster, and Jackson Smith and Jigba is probably the most underrated wide receiver, not just for what he's doing on the field, but for the fact that because he is doing this, it has got to make it a nightmare for defensive coordinators to figure out how are we going to stop all three of these guys.
Yeah, because I mean, with Olave and Garrett Wilson, you're talking about a deep threat. So you're switching your defense up, maybe to 3 deep or 4 deep, trying to keep everything in front of you. But then at the same point in time, you do that, you get burned by Njigba, or you get burned by
Right.
Travion Henderson. So there's so many weapons on Ohio State's defense that can't possibly stop them all, which is what I think that teams are going to have a heck of a time with this offense going forward. I don't care what they're ranked. That's to you, Alabama.
Definitely. Now, listen, we spent a lot of time talking about this offense. I want to at least have a moment before we move on to at least bring up the defense in this game. And I will at least preface this and say that I understand Indiana's not the best offensive team, especially since Michael Penix has not been the starting quarterback lately. And since obviously Jack Tuttle has struggled, and we even hurt him early in the actually after that first drive. And from that point on, they were constantly juggling new people in there. So they were discombobulated from the get-go. I knew that they were going to be struggling, and it helped us to tee off. But still, I mean, after that first drive, I saw the stat. It was crazy. After that first drive, they went 75 yards, scored a touchdown. We finished the first half giving up 40 total yards of offense. So we literally put them at like almost negative 30 some yards after that first drive for the entire first half. Like, even as bad as your offense may be with a different quarterback, that's insane, isn't it? To almost, for a quarter and a half, keep someone at negative yards.
Yeah. Indiana finished with 128 total yards.
Yeah, and that's terrible. I mean,
When you're talking about one play being 75, yes, it is.
Yeah, that means literally for 3.5 quarters, we gave up a total of 50 yards of offense. That's insane.
Yeah, it is insane. I'll put it like this. Depending on how Clifford plays in the coming week, I think, like I said, dude, I really think, as much as this is an Indiana post game, I really think next week is really, to me, where we're going to find out. Is
Right.
Clifford healthy? If he is, then you know what I mean?
Well,
Things are going to be.
It's our first ranked opponent since Oregon is the first thing. There's a lot of steam that got taken out of this, and probably one of the biggest reasons why game day is going to, was it Ann Arbor? Is that where the game's at for?
I haven't even looked.
Team of Stewart, Michigan State, but the game day's going there, which, I mean, they're both unbeaten and ranked. I get it. But I think had Penn State won that game and still been inside the top 10, game day would be going to Ohio State.
Who you want to win that game?
Listen, I would always don't want the team up north to do well. And I'm even that person that even if it benefits Ohio State in some way, I still can't root for them. So that's always going to be my vibe going forward. Now, the one time that I was extremely happy about a misfortune for the team up north was that 2015 season, if you recall, when they had that same matchup and the team up north was winning at the end of the game and went for the punt and fumbled it, and Michigan State picked it up and ran it for a touchdown. Well, that ended up being the same season that they had one loss, Michigan State had one loss, and we ended up losing to them, and they got the tiebreaker, went to the Big Ten championship game, and went to the playoff the year that we really should have went back. So that's literally one time that the team up north losing, and it burned us bad. But screw the team up north. Don't want them to win.
To me, I think, if you take the hate for Michigan out of it, if you take the rivalry out of it,
How do you
and
do
look
that?
at it
How
from
do
a
you
bird's
do
eye
that?
view?
How do you do that? I can't. It's like in my blood. I hate them. I'm like Woody Hayes. If I have to drive through that state, I'll try my best not to stop and get gas. You know what I mean?
And I agree, because you're of the old guard, you're of the old school, because you and I were alive at a time where we remember what it was like to lose to Michigan. And a lot of people, these young kids today, don't know that feeling.
They
So
don't
I
even
get
know the
that.
name Bianca Batuka. That was a nightmare name because he ran rollovers for 270 some yards back
Yeah.
20 some years ago. Like,
I
They
still
don't
wish
get
ill
it.
will
They
on
don't
Desmond
get it.
Howard for throwing a Heisman pose. I mean, there's many things I could go back to on that. But
Hmm.
at the same point in time, when I look at this thing from a bird's eye view, I'm looking down on it and I go, okay, if I just think about what is the best thing for Ohio State, what is the best thing for Ohio State? Is it best for Michigan State to beat them, and then we go on and play a ranked Michigan State team, and or if Michigan wins, do they stand defeated till the end of the year, and then we play them at the end of the season? And honestly, for a minute there, I thought maybe the team up north winning would be a positive thing for us to play them at the end of the year. But now I'm not so sure because I think if Michigan State beats the team up north, they're going to jump in the rankings, and I think that that's going to be a key matchup for us. So I really don't think it matters which way it goes.
I agree. I don't think at the end of the day it's really going to matter. I mean, if you really wanted to split hairs, I think it's probably more important that the team up north wins that game just because they're always going to be viewed as a better team overall than Michigan State just based on their name and history. But then again, Michigan's not, I keep saying Michigan. Then again, the team up north has really not done anything, in the last handful of years. At least Michigan State's made it to the playoff. At least Michigan State's won the Big Ten in recent memory. So I don't know. I agree with you. I think it could go either way, and I don't think it's really going to affect Ohio State one way or the other. I'm still a firm believer that with what we have in front of us, if we can continue to run the table, I think we still control our own destiny.
I think we might control our own destiny. I'm not ready to say we control our own destiny yet because
Since you're
unlike
on that, why
some
don't you
normal people,
bring up the rankings since you're on that because I know that's something that's been on your mind.
what's on my mind is Alabama because you know what? You guys that listen to this show are Ohio State fans, and I'm sure that people that don't listen to this show or are Alabama fans and listen to the show or SEC fans are gonna give me
Unless you're an Iowa State fan.
we don't care about you that way if you are.
No,
But
little
I don't know.
jab.
All I know is this much. If you beat Oklahoma State and have to rush the field, obviously you shouldn't have a football team. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, moving on here.
Plus, you still lose to the real Iowa team that's in the Big Ten anyway. So, I mean,
True.
what kind of team are you in that aspect? But anyways, moving on.
So, did you look at the AP?
I did. As a matter of fact, it's really hard to miss it considering I have like a million notifications set up on my phone through ESPN that's going to tell me if someone dropped a ketchup packet at the nearest McDonald's, they're going to freaking post about it, and I'm going to get a notification.
Okay, so for those of you that don't know, okay, when they came out this week, Georgia was number 1, Cincinnati held steady at number 2. Alabama jumps Oklahoma to move into the 3rd spot. Oklahoma's number 4, Ohio State 5, the team up north 6, Oregon 7, Michigan State 8, Iowa is at 9, and Ole Miss is at 10. Good old the Fighting Lane Kiffin's at 10. Okay, so the most interesting thing I saw here was, well, 2 things really. Oregon jumped 3 spots to land at number 7. Okay, so now they're behind Michigan and Ohio State. But the most interesting thing to me was Alabama jumps Oklahoma. Okay, now they both won this week. Neither one was pretty. Okay, for all you Alabama fans out there, you took Tennessee 3 quarters and it was a game. Okay, and then all of a sudden, you come out in the 4th quarter and put some points on. To me, that's not a
The game wasn't as close as the score indicated,
exactly.
basically.
It was not a marquee win.
Well,
It
I
was not a
apologize.
blowout.
The game was closer than what the score indicated. That's what I meant to say.
I knew what you meant. But Oklahoma didn't have a good game either, particularly, but they won. Neither one of them played a powerhouse team in any way, shape, or form. So I'm not sure what gives the people doing the AP poll the clout to jump Alabama over an undefeated Oklahoma. Can you explain that to me?
So this is actually going to piggyback off something I really want to talk about because I'm a big person that gets on Twitter through our account, and not that I'm on there interacting or putting messages or anything, but I just like to read people's input. And even though I follow a lot of Ohio State Twitter accounts, it still I still end up coming across a ton of people that probably follow Ohio State just so they control stuff. But the amount of bias, overall bias that I see, and it's always against Ohio State, and it always seems like it's for the SEC. and they will spin the narrative however they want to explain it. Like, for example, obviously we saw that crap show of Oklahoma against Kansas, and they got shut out in the first half. Like, they were down 10-0. And in the second half, they were still down 17-7. And they still put it on, but got some sort of lucky, random, quote unquote, they call it a Heisman moment, which is laughable. It literally, he was in the right place, right time, somehow pulled the ball out, got the first down. Not saying Kansas would have won the game had they been stopped, had Oklahoma been stopped on that fourth down play, but you've got to be kidding me, man, that somehow Oklahoma took some sort of positive out of that game. Now, obviously, the voters didn't give them a complete pass for that by having an Alabama jump, but how can you tell me that with what you saw Oklahoma did and with what you saw Alabama did and then with what you saw Ohio State did, and then take into account the whole reason they're behind them is for the losses, and then look at Ohio State's loss and look at Alabama's loss, how not only is Alabama ahead of Ohio State, but passing Oklahoma, but Ohio State can't pass them. I don't understand it. So that goes back to this overall social media bias that I see. And it's people nitpicking and turning the narrative around saying, well, Oklahoma's obviously better because we didn't take that L. You got owned by Oregon at your own place, and you want to sit here and tell me about Kansas when we still squeaked out a double-digit victory. Like, that's how they spin this stuff online. And it's irritating because they're taking everything out of context. And everyone with freaking eyeballs can see that Oklahoma was horrible in that game. And as a 38.5-point favorite, to be trailing at the half, not even score a point, that's awful. That's god awful. And if you, with eyeballs, actually watching Ohio State last handful of weeks and seeing what they're doing, and to sit there and tell me that you think Oklahoma's a better team than Ohio State. Now, if they would have kept Alabama below Oklahoma, then at least I can put my hands up and say, okay, you're still taking into account that Oklahoma's unbeaten, right? And Alabama's loss and Ohio State's loss are somewhat comparable, which they're not really, but they kind of are, I guess.
See,
but you see where I'm coming from, right?
Yeah, but my point is not that I think Oklahoma's a better football team than Alabama. I'm not saying that at all. As a matter of fact, I don't feel that way. But my point is this. What happened last week was not enough to jump a team. If you believe Alabama was better than Oklahoma, they should have been ahead of them before last week. I'm sorry. That's the way it was. What happened last week between the two games? There was not enough significant difference. Nobody blew anybody out. Nobody played exceptionally well. That is not a moment to jump a team over an undefeated team. Sorry.
Yeah.
The only thing I could see on the other end is that how highly they seem to regard Ole Miss. Ole Miss, if you remember, got shellacked by Alabama, and they dropped down. I think they dropped back. Yeah, they dropped back, I think, man, I want to say maybe 5 spots. I think they dropped back from like 12 to
That's an
17.
SEC thing. You're not allowed to drop more than 5 spots if you're in the SEC.
Yeah.
Because when that loss happens, it's a quality loss.
But then slowly, check this out. So they're ranked 17. So after that, they play Arkansas. Okay, beat them 52-51. Okay, so that's a dogfight right there, right?
But they potentially could have lost the game.
Exactly. So they jump up 4 spots from winning that game by 1 point.
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas was ranked like 13th at the time, and Ole Miss was 17. Then they play Tennessee, who's trash. Barely beat them. But they move up again. They move up another slot. Then they play LSU, who is probably the biggest trash right now in the entire SEC. And they move up again. 2 more spots. So now Ole Miss is sitting in the top 10. Okay, with Alabama, of course, a couple slots in front of them. And I think the fact that Alabama's so high has to do with the regard they have for Ole Miss right now. Ole Miss keeps chugging back up into the top 10. It's almost methodical the way that they're doing it.
It's literally crazy. Like, anyone with freaking eyeballs that is not an SEC homer can literally sit here and see that the favoritism in rankings that occurs with the SEC. It's like you lose a game, it's a quality win. We're not going to drop you much. You win even if they're not ranked. Well, they're not ranked because they play in a rigorous SEC schedule where if anyone else was there, they would have a worse ranking than that. So we assume that this would probably be a ranked team in any other conference. So that's still a quality win, even though they're not ranked. I mean, it's stupid. I mean, Ohio State can go out this week upcoming and beat Penn State by, we'll call it 30 points, okay? And instead of that being a huge quality win and really an eye opener, people are going to be like, well, Penn State has looked like crap the last handful of games, and maybe they were overrated. That's going to be the narrative. I guarantee you that's going to be the narrative that is put out there. And instead of us having a quality win, and it'll be a ranked win, even though after we beat them, they wouldn't be ranked anymore, it's going to be looked more negatively and not as good to help Ohio State out because they're going to find excuses on why we did so good.
Exactly.
Mark my words. Mark my words, that's going to happen.
But then you got Alabama, who comes out and plays a Tennessee team that is absolute trash. They're 500 on the year, and they beat them handily, and all of a sudden they're good enough to jump over an undefeated Oklahoma. I just don't see it.
That's my problem is what tells you that Alabama did so good that Ohio State didn't, that Alabama deserves to jump Oklahoma that Ohio State didn't. Like if they would have just kept Alabama behind them, then fine. I would have took it for what it was. But have one jump and the other one, that shows even more of the bias. Now, we sit here and we bitch and moan about these rankings when really these rankings don't mean anything. I mean, they may try to look at them when they're saying who beat who that's ranked when the CFP comes out next Tuesday. But realistically, these rankings don't matter. It's going to be really interesting. And we're probably going to spend a whole episode talking about the CFP rankings when they first come out.
But I completely disagree. The AP matters 100%. Because perception is reality, like we talk about all the time. The people in that room that are voting for the CFP, half of them aren't football people. Some of them are, but some of them aren't, dude. And they're going to look at these AP rankings. And if you look at the last few years the CFP has come out, it is very closely mirrored the AP. Very closely.
Well, who do you think has who's the governing body of the CFP? It's ESPN.
Yeah.
Is it not?
But my point is this. If the
obviously
AP
they
poll
want
is
their
out here,
horses in the ranking there, so
exactly.
they're going to continue to promote that.
But my point is if the AP poll has Alabama 13th, the CFP is not going to come out and put them third. It's not going to happen. But if the AP has them third and then the CFP comes out, they're not going to drop Alabama 3 spots in the CFP. They're not. So it does matter.
To an extent, I understand where you're coming from, and I agree. We could go for hours on this ranking crap, but I think at the end of the day, we're at least both somewhere on the same page in the fact that the bias that we all know is there is still very obviously there. And, I understand this is completely subjective, but it would be nice if somehow there was some sort of unbiased opinion in this. I mean, they claim that, it's supposed to be, but what kind of bullcrap explanations we get every year when the final CFP comes out. I mean, they don't really fully explain who, why, or what or anything other than this is just the 4 we believe are there. If that's the case, then why do we even keep score? If on paper one team's better than the other, I mean, this is the reason why Cincinnati, in my opinion, has no chance this year unless we have multiple other teams losing.
I think if Georgia wins out, they're in. If Georgia wins out and Oklahoma loses, they're in.
I think if Georgia loses in the SEC championship, they're still in. Are you kidding me?
No. I said Cincinnati is in.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
Georgia wins and Oklahoma loses, they're in.
As long as Cincinnati continues to look good doing so, I would agree with you. I agree with you completely. And I hope they do.
I do too. I want them in there.
I think that's the best scenario all the way around. I mean,
is it not time?
Well, more than anything, I just don't want to see 2 freaking SEC teams in there. I don't want to see that.
But dude, Cincinnati doesn't even realize the kind of burden that they're carrying right now.
I guarantee they do get in. I guarantee they probably do.
If they do get in and get shellacked, it's going to mean something going forward. You and I both know it.
Well, yeah, they get embarrassed. They're never going to let another one in until it becomes past 4-team playoff.
Because they've been complaining. All the TCUs, all the Boise States and the Houstons and the Cincinnatis have all been complaining for years they're not getting their shot. And if they get their shot and get shellacked, then they're not going to get back in. But if they come in and knock off a big dog, that says something, dude. That could mean something going forward in the history of college football. It could.
All right. And I think the one thing that Cincinnati has working for them is they have their quarterback Ritter, who's kind of been a little bit of a Heisman candidate. He's done a lot of special things for that program.
I like him.
Yeah, he's a good run quarterback. He's a decent passing quarterback. He's a gamer. I think that's one thing that's going to help them because they kind of have a little bit more of a household name with him, especially seeing what Cincinnati did last year during their season and during that bowl game against Georgia. I think they have as good a shot as any Group of Five team to ever get in this year, if a team will ever get in the 14 playoffs. So that's kind of my take on it. Now, speaking of Heisman, I know it's still early, and I know Ohio State's season is still really backloaded, so a lot can happen. But I'm a little bit surprised in the fact that I really feel like Ohio State, and I'm talking mainly about C.J. Stroud, Travion Henderson, and potentially maybe Olave or someone kind of throwing someone in there. We're not getting a lot of recognition or notoriety at all yet, in my opinion. I mean, CJ Stroud's getting talked around a little bit, but still, like the crazy thing I heard the other day is Williams, the quarterback that's came in for Rattler for Oklahoma. I mean, he's played like what, a game and a half or 2.5 games now or something like that. And they literally want to crown this kid the Heisman immediately already from what they've seen, and said he's the best quarterback in the country. They said, we've seen what CJ's done. We've seen what Bryce Young's done. But have you seen this kid play? He's unbelievable. Like,
Well, two things here. Number one, we're Ohio State, and that means that everybody hates us, even the national media. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. Number two, we lost to Oregon. If we would have beat Oregon, I think it'd be in a different conversation right now. Even though I'm not saying that has any bearing at all on the way that CJ Stroud has played and the 600 yards of offense that we put up against Oregon. But what I'm saying is we've lost. And at the end of the day, you and I both know that Heisman candidate is going to come from the number 1 or number 2 ranked team in this country at the end of the CFP.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Alabama lose?
Dude,
and
are you really
Bryce
having this
Young
conversation with me? They're also Alabama.
So is that it? So it's popular. I understand the Heisman's a popularity contest to an extent, and just like voting your prom king or prom queen, right? We get that. But at some point, you have to realistically look what they're doing on the field. I mean, CJ Stroud is number 1 in QBR. Okay, so we know he's being super efficient. He's making good choices. He's in the top 6, I think, in touchdown passes. He's in the top 12 in yards per game passing. And we're not even a predominantly major passing offense. I mean, we're trying to split it pretty close to 50-50. And you have some, colleges that are predominantly passing and spread everything. And we're still we're in the top 15 passing. So you can't sit here and tell me, like, unbiasedly that CJ Stroud, especially if you just watch him lately and watch some of the passes that he's dropping in there and his command of the offense, and that he's really making fewer and fewer mistakes, and he's really starting to come into his own and get comfortable. You're really seeing what he's capable of. I really like to pride myself on trying to be unbiased when I watch other teams and not just, be like, oh, screw them, I don't like them. Like, I'm watching what I see on the field, and I'm taking that information in. I don't see a lot of other quarterbacks in the country that I think is better than him, if any.
It's not going to be us. That's my point.
Well, I think the other thing that's working against us is that we might have multiple candidates on the team. Travion Henderson is going to get some notoriety, and a thing that works with him is knowing that he's a true freshman, not a redshirt freshman, a true freshman that didn't even play his senior year of football, is coming in and doing this, and most likely going to break all of Maurice Claret's freshman records. And I think that works for him in the fact that, man, he's this young and he's doing this. Like, that makes it even more fascinating. But I think when you have both of those on the table, that can hurt each other a little bit. Sometimes that can kind of split votes.
I'll put it like this, man. I just feel like the cards are stacked against us. I feel like if Alabama has this huge comeback, they beat Auburn and they end up beating somebody in the national, or I guess it'll be Georgia, obviously, in the SEC championship game. They will be ranked number 1. They will be ranked number 1 before the end of the season, before the playoffs start. So my point is, dude, when you have a number 1 ranked Alabama, okay, and number 2, I don't know who it'll end up there, but I'm just saying, say it's Cincinnati, say we're 3, something like that. I just feel more and more like they find a reason to put them there so they can give out those accolades. And I just feel like that's going to happen, dude. I just do.
Yeah, I mean, it very well could. That there's going to be a lot to see when that CFP finally comes out, but none of it's going to matter if we don't win this weekend. So we need to make sure that we stay focused on this weekend, and then hopefully put up a good performance like I think we should, which we'll be addressing that, guys. For those of you who don't know, Chad is actually coming into town this weekend, down to Kentucky. And we plan on doing our second ever video podcast episode. And in that process, Chad has a prop bet he's got to pay up on. You care to inform our audience exactly what's going to be happening with that? Because we did throw it to Facebook and the fans and those listeners to see exactly what it is they wanted us to do.
Yeah, so there were several things on the table. One of the things was that I have to do a Johnsonville Italian sausage infomercial every time Davis says the word Buckeye. That was number one. That ended up winning, actually. And then number two was our buddy Chaz. He kind of came up with something where I had to wear an Oscar Mayer wiener hat during the entire video podcast. That came in second place, and I was kind of worried a little bit about that.
I was too. I was a little
taken
too, because I
over.
really didn't want to have to do that one.
I was like, my God. And then after that, there was a couple votes for some of the other stuff we had up there, like, giving a over-the-top compliment every time somebody says Buckeye, or I can't remember the last one was, but mainly most of the votes came with those two. So long story short, I will be at Davis's house this coming Saturday for the Penn State game, and I will be yielding a 5-pack of Johnsonville Italian sausage, and I will be the best spokesperson for Johnsonville that they have ever had in their life. So if you're listening to this, Mr. Johnsonville Italian sausage man, I'm broke and I need a sponsorship. Okay,
We're doing it
so
for
listen
free
to
now.
me. I'm going to put together some of the greatest sausage infomercial stuff that you guys have ever heard in your life. So be prepared. Strap up, fellas. All right, because I'm coming for you. But
So how did we get here is the thing. How did it listen? I know, but I'm kind of wanting you to maybe there's got to be someone listening maybe for the first time or missed that episode where this whole sausage thing became an issue. And
Now
we're
listen,
thinking
dude.
like, why in the hell out of all the things possible are they wanting to promote Johnsonville Italian sausage of anything?
I'm going to tell you this to be totally honest, dude. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a man, a woman, whoever you are. Okay. At the end of the day, in whatever way you want to take this statement, everybody likes a big old sausage.
I can't even, dude. Listen,
Oh,
this all derived. This is probably something because we have the same freaking humor, and I think this was even a quote from what Ace Ventura when he's sitting there trying to call out or trying to find Roger Predak or not. You know what I'm talking about at the end where he's like trying to prove that she's a man, right? And takes pants off and he says, "Big old Mister Kanish," and
Yep.
talking about big old sausage. And dude, it's all in good fun and humor, but there's just something about it several episodes ago when you initially lost a bet, and you had to put up a profile pic on your Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And of all the pictures that I could have selected for you to put up there, you had made a joke that very episode before that about, worst thing about putting just a big old sausage up there and just wonder what people would think about it. Just random, right? So this is how this whole thing came to be. And whether it's big old honking sausage, whether it's Mr.
Now, in my
Kanish
defense, though, I may have initially brought up the sausage, but you kept it going. You didn't have to choose that profile pic, but you did.
Well, because that was a hell of an idea. And I knew what kind of, I just had an idea of what kind of, I guess, reaction you would get from that. And sure enough, I mean, we're not going to share it here, but some of the reactions that you got did not disappoint. So I guess it effectively accomplished what we wanted it to.
I have to be honest. I'm proud of all the people that sent me text messages about the profile picture because you did not disappoint.
Right. Now, again, we're leaving a lot open to interpretation here. We're not saying anything specific other than, hey, you can take it how you want. We found some humor in this. I'm glad some of you guys have too. If you haven't, we apologize. And if that's the case, we're literally just talking about Johnsonville Italian sausage. I mean, it's really good on a game day on the grill, and that's probably going to be the route that we take on Saturday.
Well, speaking of sausage, Davis, tell them about the prop bet. Tell them how it went, and tell them why I'm going to be the greatest Johnsonville sausage infomercial guy ever.
Yeah, so you guys don't know, we do 3 prop bets every week for the game. When we did it for the Indiana game, we just kind of pick some things that we disagree on, and we take one side or the other, best out of 3. At the conclusion of the game, wins the prop bet. The first one was Indiana scores 17 points or more. I actually took that one. I said I figured they'd score 17 points or more. You took the under, and you actually won that one. But then we went to OSU passing touchdowns, and we set it at 5. Chad said 5 or more, and I don't know why I had an inkling, but I said 4 or less, and we actually hovered right at 4. So I barely escaped by that one, and then we went, who's going to have more receiving yards, Olave or Wilson? Chad took Olave, I took Wilson, and kind of a weird game where Olave still scored a touchdown, only had 24 yards. Wilson had 59. So I won the
What's
last
funny
two.
was neither one of them were in the top 2 receiving.
And it was Ruckert and Smith, or
Yep.
Smith and Jigba. So, but yeah, I mean, I ended up winning the last 2 out of 3, and again, we were going to leave it up to vote of Facebook. So it ended up being that sausage is going to be the death of us, man. I mean, if we ever do like T-shirts or any sort of product or something that we sell, I feel like that sausage is going to be our trademark somehow. I don't know how or why, but that stupid Italian sausage is going to be our trademark.
Yeah, I can see it happening 100%. And I've already got some ideas from some people. Like I said, oh man, just please tune in Saturday. We plan on posting the thing. I'm headed down to Kentucky, in the morning time, and we're gonna get on the video and try to get it out by the 1 o'clock hour ish. So if you're hovering around waiting for the game to start, man, and looking for something fun, come over and check it out. It's gonna be a good time. We're gonna laugh, we're gonna joke, and then afterwards, of course, we're gonna drink a couple beers and watch the game. It should be a great time. But the video episode is definitely going to be awesome, so make sure you come over and check it out.
Just really looking forward to how Chad's going to handle this quote unquote infomercial, and I'm going to try to get in as many Buckeyes as I can during that podcast, just to see how on top of your game you are, to see how many times you could literally come up with something unique to say. So I'm going to try to stump you a few times, but
oh God, don't do it, man.
Normally you're on your game, so I think we'll be all right. I'm not going to overdo it. I mean, we don't want to lose viewership in the first 5 minutes. Like, why?
We probably lost all the viewership we can right now.
Probably. I mean, what are we try to keep this at 30 minutes. Where are we at now? Like 40, 50 minutes? I mean, we're way past that.
I look forward to seeing everybody's smiling face over at the Facebook page on Saturday. And Davis, tell them where they can find us.
So as always, guys, we're on all major streaming services: Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, probably anything else you can find those streaming services on. And we do post these on YouTube as well, if that's more your more of what you're up for. But either way, definitely the video ones that we're going to be doing this weekend, that's going to be mainly more promoted for the YouTube page. But again, the audio version will still be available on all streaming services as well. So again, appreciate you all coming and listening. Love getting some of the interaction that we're starting to get. So keep that up. And until then, go Bucks. OH.